In the past few months, I have made significant changes to the way that I approach dating. Even though I'm still single, I will say that I have completely noticed that I am attracting higher quality men and men that are more aligned with the vision of the kind of person that I see myself being with. So in today's video, we are going to talk about 5 things that I have changed in my dating life in order to attract better men. Grab a little snack. Let's go ahead and dive into today's video. If you guys are new here, my name is DeAndre Nicolette, and on my channel, we have videos similar to this where we're talking about dating, lifestyle, spirituality, basically all the things. So if you're into that, go ahead and subscribe, or maybe watch this video first and see if you're into me and into my vibe, and then maybe subscribe. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into today's video. So the first thing that I want to talk about is like maybe a little bit of a controversial one. Okay, it's not that controversial to be honest with you. But the first thing that I did this year was get off the dating apps. So let me give you guys a little bit of backstory so you can understand why I feel like this was super essential to my journey in dating and why I feel like it's helping me attract higher quality men. And if you're triggered by the term higher quality, this video might not be for you, but I will be using that term throughout the video just to get my point across. I have been living in Dallas for about 3.5 years or so. And for most of that time, if not all of that time, I've been on and off the dating apps. If you watch any of my other videos or are familiar with my podcast, Manifest Daily, then you know I talk about divine timing. I believe that there is an essence or an element, if you will, of divine timing that comes into play when we're talking about dating and when we're talking about finding someone that is a good match for us. I feel like if you are meant to meet someone at 32 and you are 30 years old, there is nothing that you can do to force that timeline to speed up. That being said, I feel like my experience on dating apps was just not ideal because when I was in that cycle of being on and off the apps, I found that the apps often triggered something in me where I felt this like anxious side of myself come through. When you are anxiously attached, you're the kind of person that's like very clingy. It's almost this desperate energy. You really want to be validated, externally validated by the other person. You're always looking for like, does he like me? Is he into me? It's just this place where you feel very insecure about your position in the relationship or just very insecure in general. And I know myself, I have insecure moments as we all do, but I tend to be a very like confident person just in my natural energy. And whenever I'm in a space or in a relationship or in a situation that puts me in a very anxious state of mind, I'm aware enough to recognize that that's not my natural operating space. And I allow myself to ask questions about how it is I got here and why it is I feel triggered enough to be putting myself in this anxious state of mind. Dating apps did that for me. I found that when I was on dating apps, I would be swiping because the apps are designed to make you want to swipe all the time. And I would be like, thinking that maybe I would find my person with the next swipe. I was just in this place where I was almost addicted to the search, addicted to looking for whoever that person was. And because I was doing that, I was giving off desperate energy. I was very much in a place where I was going on a lot of dates and I was entertaining a lot of people, but they weren't my people. They weren't even people that honestly were up to my standards. What can often happen is you start to lower your standards. And maybe this also happens with men. I would be super curious to know if you're a man watching this video, if you find that this happens to you as well. But I know from a lot of my other friends who I speak to that are also women, they've had this experience as well, where they're on dating apps and the more that you swipe and the more that it feels like you are literally like grasping at straws, looking for a needle in the haystack, the more that you start to find yourself lowering your standards. Maybe you're like, okay, you know what? I can settle for this. Or maybe this is super lackluster and I'm gonna go for this. And you start to almost compromise your boundaries and compromise your values of what you want in a person because you feel like you have to settle on the apps. Now, this isn't everyone's story. So if you're someone that has not had this experience with dating apps, you don't have this negative relationship with the apps, by all means, use them. I think they're a great tool to meet people and to be exposed to people in your city or a new city, whatever. But for me, I just found that it was not doing anything positive for me. Like, yes, I was meeting a lot of people, but I feel like the quality of people that I was like allowing myself to give access to wasn't of my standard and just wasn't for me at all. That was the first thing I did, and that was something that I kicked off at the start of this year. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna try something completely different. I've always used the apps. I've always operated by finding people from the apps. What if I tried to, I don't know, go outside, touch grass? I will say one of the things about getting off the dating apps that's been really helpful is that I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. Because I'm off the apps, I'm having to do a lot of things in person. And I don't do every single thing that I do with the intention of meeting a man, but I am putting myself in more social situations. I'm trying different things that perhaps I wouldn't have been open to or would be like really nervous to try before. And yes, I'm still nervous to try them, but it's the fact that I'm allowing myself to put myself out there because I also know that I need to be outside. It's essential for me to kind of be in the spaces that other people are in order to not only meet possible romantic connections, but possible platonic connections and friendships as well. You're off the apps, or maybe you're on them, I don't know. But if you're off the apps and you're outside and you are touching grass like myself, how do you actually invite men to speak to you? Men are afraid to approach women because they don't want to seem creepy, but women want men who are able to come up to them and approach them because they want someone who's like in his masculine and yada, 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 yada. One thing that I've started to do is like give men invitations to approach me. I can be intimidating, and maybe you're also the same way. I think when you are a good looking person, physically attractive, conventionally physically attractive, or when you have like really powerful energy, right? You just show up, like you walk into a room and people immediately like turn their heads. They know who you are, or they don't know who you are, but they know that you're like someone that they should pay attention to. It can be intimidating for people to feel like they can approach you. You will find that people will stare at you. They will look at you and they will not speak to you, or maybe they will sometimes. I find that I get a lot of compliments from women who like, you know, we're like this. I can give a girl a compliment. She can give me a compliment and we're cool. But a lot of times men will just like stare or like be weird. They won't actually like want to speak to me. So I decided that I was going to change the way that I related to men in public in order to give them a very clear invitation that it was safe to speak to me. And that looks a little bit differently in every single situation. But one of the things that I love to do is if there is someone that I see from across the room, whether I'm at the gym, I'm at the grocery store, I'm like out at a mixer, I'm at an event, whatever, I will make eye contact with that person and hold that eye contact, and I'll either smile or I'll wave. Sometimes that's not enough, okay? Because sometimes I think that men will be afraid still. I will say that it has worked, it's been helpful. Like me just like literally like making eye contact with someone, smiling and being open in my energy. You know, if I'm not at like the gym, someplace where I have to have earphones, and I usually don't have earphones, and I'm usually kind of just like open and like receptive if I am open and receptive to meeting someone. That has actually been really successful in inviting people to come speak to me, because then what happens is someone will come up to me and they'll give me a compliment, or they'll come up to me and they'll ask me about my workout routine. Like it literally is such a simple thing to do, but I feel like if you are someone again with the very intimidating energy or like RBF, it is going to take a little bit of an extra bit of effort to get someone to come up to you. And if you're someone that doesn't always want to initiate, if you're someone that wants someone who will lead and someone who is like powerful enough, confident enough to come up to you, you gotta give them a little bit of something so that they actually know like it's safe to approach, and you will be either positively open to it, or you might just be like really excited to speak to them as well. Another thing that I've shifted with my dating approach is to let men lead, because I want a man who will lead, and the only way that you're going to get that as a woman is if you actually like let them do the thing. I am very much like a type A type of person. I'm a planner. I do like control and power, but I'm starting to really let go of my need to have everything within my control. And I think if you're someone who is similar to myself, it might be a little bit hard for you, it might be scary at first, because to feel like you're relinquishing your power feels terrifying. The thing about it is you have to shift your mindset, because you're not relinquishing your power. Letting a man lead is not relinquishing your power, okay? In the initial like dating stages, you are essentially on a journey to understand if this is the type of person that one you want to be with, and if you are someone that wants your partner to be more of that leader, if you can trust him to do that. At the start, you're kind of like evaluating the situations in which he's given the opportunity to lead and what he does with them. And that starts off from the very first day that you have contact with this person, right? Are they planning to date? So what does that look like? Are they communicative in terms of asking you what it is that you like to do, or your dietary preferences, or all of these different things? And, you know, the specifics, when you get down to it, it's going to be your preference, how you like to be communicated with. Are you, you know, do you like him to call? Do you like him to text? Whatever. And I also think the other part of it is like when you're letting someone lead at the start, like one of the things that I really like to do is if there's something that I prefer, instead of saying like, you need to do this, I communicate it by being like, oh, look, I would love it if you did this. Or if they do it once and I really like it, I communicate that and I'm like, oh, I really liked when you did that, or like that was really nice, because that's that positive reinforcement that lets someone know that something they did made you feel happy, or it made you feel good, or it made you feel, you know, desired, or whatever the case is that you want to feel. So let them lead, sitting back in that energy, that feminine energy for myself, and really taking a step back and just kind of letting things be and allowing that man to take charge. It is one, so much easier on me because I get to like rest. I don't have to feel like I'm doing it all. And then I don't have to feel the resentment of feeling like, why am I doing all of this? And he's like not doing anything, especially at the beginning stages where you're being courted. But then also I found that it really is helping me to attract men that when they come in to my life and I make it clear that this is what I'm looking for and this is how you have to show up. If they're not willing to do that, that's totally fine. They make their exit and that's great. And if they are willing to do that, they stick around and, you know, it's great. I also want to say that, you know, with all the things that I'm talking about, like I said in the earlier part of this video, I am still single, right? So it's not like I'm coming to you from this like success story of I found this amazing man and da, da, da. But I am saying that in shifting these things, I found that I get to show up much more confidently. Like I feel so confident and free and feminine and just amazing in the way that I'm showing up, not just in my romantic life, but also in my life in general, like how I'm showing up at work, how I'm showing up in friendships, how I'm showing up in life. And I have gotten such incredible compliments on my energy and the way that I show up. And I know that it's because I'm allowing myself to literally do what feels natural and comfortable to me. And it's attracting men who come into my life and recognize that and are able to honor that. There have been men that have come in recently who, when it's become apparent what I stand for, who I am, because it is quite apparent early on, they've made their way out. And like I said, if that is what you're experiencing, people coming in, you're showing up as you're doing these things and they're leaving, that's also a really good sign too, because I feel like that makes it clear that you're not for everyone. You don't want to be the woman that's for everyone. You don't want to be the chill girl that just like goes with the flow with everything that you don't like and you have no boundaries and you have no standards and like whatever. Because like really, what's that going to get you? Like, okay, yeah, more people might be trying to talk to you, but like, what are they really trying to talk to you for, right? Because it is very apparent to men and to women as well. It's very apparent to everyone when someone doesn't hold themselves to a high standard. And again, high standard, everyone has their own definition of that. But if you're someone that is not confident in your boundaries, if you're not confident in the way that you're showing up, if you have no, you know, core value of self-love and self-esteem and self-respect, people pick up on that and they will take advantage of that if that's the way that you're showing up in this world. So another thing that I've changed recently is embracing celibacy, or is it abstinence? So it's not that I'm waiting until marriage or anything like that. So whichever one that one is, it's not that one for me, but it's that I've come to realize when you introduce physical intimacy to that level in a relationship, things will change and shift. There's a lot of like, you know, scientific evidence out there that shows that if your biological sex is female, that you are affected by sexual encounters differently, right? We have different hormones that are released that allow us to bond with our partner in a different way, whereas a man, a biological male, will have a different response to sex. So it's partly about that, but then there's this other piece of it where, again, I'm doing things differently. This is a very personal decision and it's a very sensitive nature decision. So if it's not something that you feel like you have to do or you want to try or you want to embrace, by all means do you. But I have found that for me, I am a lot more level-headed and clear. When I am now dating someone, it's kind of like I'm looking at all of these other things about who you are as a person, because physical intimacy is not even like on the table right now for me. It's not even like a thing that I'm considering. I want to know who you are, how you show up, how you treat me as an individual, especially if you're not being given the signals that that is happening. This isn't necessarily a conversation that I've been having with men early on, because I haven't actually dated someone like long term enough this year for me to even be having that kind of conversation with them. So this doesn't have to be something that you tell someone on the first date or the second date or even the third date. This is something that you, if you make that decision for yourself, can keep it personal. Obviously now I'm here sitting, on YouTube talking about this, but I'm just trying to help y'all, okay? I'm just trying to share what I'm doing. I'm trying to share what I'm doing, and I'm trying to be honest about it. So yeah, but this doesn't have to be something that you share with someone very early on if you're not comfortable. And I also don't necessarily think it's any of their business, to be quite honest with you. So I don't think you should share it early on or anything like that. When you consider the weight and the gravity of sexual intimacy, you start to recognize just how important it is for you to hold on to that, while you're still getting to know someone. I also truly believe that women hold a lot of power, and that sex is power. A lot of times, I don't think we realize just how powerful sex is. I think as a collective, we have normalized seeing sex as something that's very casual, that's kind of like whatever. It's like you feel good in the moment and yada, yada, yada. But like, we have to realize that this is literally something that can create life, right? And when you think about that, you start to recognize just how powerful it is, and not just from the life creation standpoint, but from the standpoint that you are connecting with an individual, and there's a lot of transference of power and energy through the process of sex. And when you realize that, as a woman, you also start to recognize that it is in your best interest to hold on to your power until you feel like you are in a situation with someone who you can share that power with, who will not just take it away and run. I did a podcast episode a while back. I actually did two of them. There was Friends with Benefits Part 1 and Friends with Benefits Part 2. I forget which is which, but one of them I talk about the psychology of dating apps, and in another one of these episodes I talk about the energetics of sex. So again, my podcast is called Manifest Daily. If you are into that kind of stuff and want to go listen to that, just search Manifest Daily FWB on whatever podcast streaming apps that you use, and you'll find those two episodes. I've never been here for the hookup culture vibe. If again, that's you, that's great. But I do feel like we have normalized this. We have normalized this conversation of making women feel like in order to be a true feminist and be someone who is an advocate for women being equal and women feeling like they are powerful in this world, we must engage in casual sex. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I feel like that engaging in casual sex is actually diminishing to our power as women and doesn't bring us the feeling that society has tried to convince us it will bring us. In fact, I see a lot more stories of women who are engaging in that behavior and feel bad. They have bad feelings because now they're connecting to a man that may not necessarily like them, may not even necessarily want to be in a relationship with them if that's what they want, may not want to give them what they want. And now you've created an attachment to an individual that wants nothing to do with you. So for me, this has been a really big shift in my process. And so far, I think it's something that I'm really, really proud of myself for doing and making that shift. And it's going to be something that I continue to embrace until I feel safe enough in a partnership to change that status. So the last thing that I shifted is I stopped letting my past situations or past encounters with men color how I see new men coming into my life. As humans, we learn from our past. So we have an encounter, something happens to us, and as a result, we kind of like learn what to do next time. So it's sort of like the little kid that grows up and puts their hand on the stove and burns their hand and realizes, oh, this is hot. And then all of a sudden you learn, like, let me not touch the stove like this because it's hot. And it's a safety mechanism, right? Your brain is trying to keep you safe. Your brain is trying to keep you alive and all of the things. And so if you have negative encounters with men that look a certain way, a lot of times we start to build up these walls and put these guards up because we're like, I will never get hurt like that again. And so I'm going to put put my wall up. Discernment is one thing. Being discerning, not allowing yourself to be taken for a fool, not being gullible, not being incredibly naive is one thing. Putting up walls and being guarded is another, because I don't necessarily think that you fully sit in your feminine, or you fully, allow yourself to be courted and seen as an individual if you have all of these guards up. How is someone supposed to see you if you have walls this high up that's preventing them from seeing you or from understanding who you are? This is difficult sometimes because it requires an immense amount of self-reflection and self-awareness. I had a situation recently where I went on this date and it was a great date. I had an amazing time. I thought the other person did as well. But then after, I felt like the communication was off. There was a moment where I had to have a chat with myself, because in the past I have gone on really great dates and then it sort of fizzled out and I've been ghosted, and I've been ghosted quite a few times. And so that's not a nice feeling, to feel like you had a connection with someone, feel like they enjoyed themselves, feel like you enjoyed yourself, and then all of a sudden they disappear. And so I think I was looking at this situation from that particular lens, and immediately my reaction was to go on the defensive. In being self-aware, I allowed myself to shift in that moment. So it didn't happen quite quickly, I will admit. I basically did a journaling session to kind of come back to my energy, and I allowed myself to really practice detachment. I said, okay, well, what happens if this person does ghost? What happens if this person disappears and leaves? What happens if this person doesn't want to go on a second date? What happens if this person decides you're not for them? Well, that simply means that they're just not my person. It's interesting that as I started to practice that detachment, and I started to allow myself to sit with what was happening, I was like, well, it's also just been one day, right? They could be really busy with work, things could be happening. And I really just relaxed back into let me just chill the F out. It is not that deep. Wouldn't you know? It was fine. They were actually just busy and things went on as usual and everything was fine. I think it's really important to note that, because even on this journey, no matter how much you grow, growth isn't linear, right? You're going to have moments where you're triggered and tested and people do weird things, and now you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you have to have that awareness to call yourself out and be like, wait a second, what energy am I operating in? This is that desperate energy. I'm attaching to someone that I don't know, and then you have to practice that detachment. I'm going to do a video on detachment soon, because this is something that I low-key sometimes struggle with. So I'll talk about what helps me when it comes to practicing detachment. Comment down below if you would enjoy that video. But yeah, this was something that I've had to do. It's just really looking at each individual that I'm dealing with as if they are just that. They're not, the person that I dealt with last month, or the person that I dealt with last week, or even the person I dealt with last year. They're a new person. They're a new individual. They have their own experiences, their own traumas, their own beliefs, their own everything that is coloring the way that they're interacting with me. And until you're able to communicate with that person, you don't necessarily know what's making them do whatever they're doing. You're also especially at the beginning stages, they don't know you and you don't know them. You don't know what their family, history is. You don't know what they're dealing with on the side. You just don't know. And so I think it's really good to go in with this energy of let me look at them as if they are just them. And I'm collecting data points as I go, and I'm allowed to change my opinion on who they are and change my opinion on what I want with them as an individual as I learn more about them. So anyways, my loves, that is the video, 5 things I've shifted in my dating life to attract better men. I definitely have a few more of these, so let me know if you'd want a part 2 to this video, if you like it, if it does well, I can do part 2. And I think that is it. I'm gonna go have some lunch and have a little bit of water because I'm absolutely thirsty. And I will chat with you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for being here. Subscribe if you enjoyed. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Send it to a friend who can use these words, use these tips, all the things. And I will chat with you soon. Bye.